To our candid conversation for this evening.
Yes, yes.
On this Monday evening, we hope you're having a great day, and we're coming to you live from New Destiny Center here in Michigan.
Yes.
And also, we have as our special guest this evening, we have Natasha Montgomery from M.B.S. Mental Health, Whole Health. I keep saying mental health, Whole Health.
Yes.
Okay. So as you come in, yes, that is our daughter. But as you come in, if you can just like this and share it for us, so we want to get some folks involved. We're going to be sharing it as well to let people know that we're on. And today is just a real relaxed, nothing really formalized conversation about how we're feeling with everything that's going on. And so, go ahead.
Absolutely. It's just with everything going on. Of course, we've been in our homes for 3 months or so. That's been something with the pandemic. And then, of course, with everything that has been happening as of late in the news, with the, of course, the death of our brother, amen, who, amen, was definitely an injustice that took place. And then all the uprising that has taken place since then, the protests, the feelings from that, it's just really a time of intense emotions and feelings. So we want to come online and address some of these. Some of us have the same feelings that others are going through. And with my daughter, of course, just being her field and her profession, we wanted to have someone who is licensed in these areas dealing with mental health and some of the issues that we see plaguing our nation right now. And then really to see how we are doing, how are we processing this?
Yes.
My wife and us has been pastors and leaders in the church, of course. We want to make sure that our people are processing things correctly, that they're healthy, body, mind, of course, and spirit, that they're whole health, as my daughter says, whole health.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just wanted to come in and just kind of have a conversation.
Yes.
Start a conversation about this. And I do know from being a pastor and a leader that and that you have to come together and have dialogue and discuss when you have issues, right?
Right.
Counseling on a low level basis in the church, we get to come together and we talk about issues, and it helps to talk about where you are. So that's what this is about today. So kindly like and share this, invite people to tune in, and we just want to start this conversation.
Absolutely. So Natasha, if you can just introduce yourself for us. We know who you are, but there are some that do not. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
All righty. Well, my name is Natasha Montgomery. These are my parents. Grew up, obviously, in Michigan. I currently live in Texas, but I am a licensed professional counselor, a licensed chemical dependency counselor, as well as a life coach. And I love being able to have conversations like this. This is my whole goal and mission, is just to normalize the conversation around mental health and really meet people where they are. So I finished my master's in 2017. I've been practicing since then, growing my business. I developed my company, M.B.S. Whole Health, with the focus of taking care of the mind, body, and spirit. It's a very holistic approach. And I think that the main thing that I try and focus on is how to create that gap between spirituality and mental health, and knowing that you can have faith and take care of your mental health at the same time.
Absolutely.
And so as just in our regular conversations, because we're oftentimes on the phone or on Facebook via video, since you're down in Texas, and we've been talking about just in the last few days specifically, we know that we have been quarantined now for 75 days?
Yeah, since March 15th,
March 15th. And so with that, we lead busy lives. We're always on the go, and having to actually stay in our homes, and not only just stay in our homes, but anticipating, okay, when we go out, there's so many rules that we have to, we have to wear masks, we have to have on gloves, we have to be 6 feet apart. And as a part of that, us not having our regular church service, like, where we're accustomed to, on Wednesdays, on Sundays, during the week, getting together with our congregation, friends and family, and, doing, our inspiration time, our worship time. And now that's all come to a halt.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's just done in a different way.
It's definitely done in a different way. Absolutely. One of the craziest things that we were talking about just a few weeks ago is it's like, okay, we're doing the virtual services, and we know definitely that we're reaching more people, but it's like after the video goes off, it's like we feel a little like, oh,
yeah,
we want to touch them. We want to hug them.
Yeah, separated from them.
Exactly. So talk to us a little bit about, that I've been seeing people on Facebook and, other social media outlets, and they're literally, some of them are like, drive by your church and take a picture of it. We miss our church family. Talk to us a little bit about what, this time of separation and isolation, the things that kind of work on the mind with isolation and separation.
It's definitely a challenge. I know that we can all just relate to that off the bat. It's been a challenge because our human nature, we're pack animals, right? We survive by being together. So for us to say that we can't have that touch, that feel, that closeness, it's against our kind of human nature. So it's difficult, and it's normal to have that need. I miss being around people. I went to Kohl's today to do an Amazon return, and I had my glove, my mask, and I'm just talking to the cashier. I was like, I miss being around people. So it's very normal to just want that human contact. So I know that just personally, people being in isolation, people who already struggle with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, stress, things like that, our lives keep us distracted from really facing that. So when we're in our homes, we don't have these distractions. Sometimes it makes those things ramp up even more, where you're saying, okay, now I'm really depressed. Now I'm really feeling lonely. Now I'm really feeling sad. So it becomes even more difficult to kind of go about your day to day, because you don't have those commuting to work, going to work, being around your coworkers, going to church, being around your peers. You don't have that to kind of buffer those emotions and those feelings. So I think that it's normal. And I think that anyone says that it isn't normal is lying. We need to be around each other. But I think that in this virtual world that we're creating, like you said, it creates more opportunity for connection. It doesn't look and feel the same, but it's more opportunity. For you guys, like you said, being able to reach people who didn't necessarily feel comfortable coming into a church.
Right.
As far as having those times connecting with friends. Like I've gone to different Zoom parties. I mean, people, my sorority sisters back in Michigan, I hadn't talked to them in years. And wow. Okay, we're going to sit on Zoom. We haven't seen each other in forever. We're going to spend an hour just connecting. So I think we've become creative and adapted to what this new normal looks like as far as creating some different connections. So when you talk about when you log out from church and really missing and wanting to be around those people, I think designating a person that you talk to, actually talk to after service goes over. Because I think sometimes those filler conversations can make us feel like we're connecting, but how much are you really connecting with someone, giving them a quick hug after church and saying, hey, good to see you. So I think you have to really be intentional nowadays, especially with this new normal, to say, okay, how do I kind of branch out of my comfort zone and create some real authentic connections?
That's awesome.
That's good.
That's awesome. Can you give us like just a couple of, and that was a really great example. We do have a couple people that we do touch point with after service, just to say, hey, what's going on. And so, and it does help. And obviously, we're here together. So that definitely helps as well. But for someone who is, because we do have congregants that are single, who are no children, that kind of thing. So there's no real activity. Give us a few more ideas on how they can be creative in kind of reaching out to get what they need as far as that human contact.
Yeah, for me, I can speak just from my own personal experience being a single mom now, and I see my kids, I get my kids week on, week off. So it'll be a week when I don't have my kids where it's like, okay, I haven't seen anybody. So I think one, taking those time for friends that you haven't talked to in forever. Zoom, you can do Facebook video, you can do, if you have iPhone, you can do FaceTime, saying, none of us have anything real to do. Yes, the world is starting to open up a little bit more, but people have time, right? So using those resources as far as technology to your advantage to connect with people, even if it's someone that you hadn't talked to in forever and maybe your life was a little busy, to sit on the phone for 30 minutes. It's like now time has been created for us to make those connections. I've seen people like meet up at, well, I'm in Texas, so we have Chick-fil-A everywhere, but meet up somewhere and they are sitting, because some people have trucks, so they'll open the back of their trucks and sitting here and someone is sitting there. They're not touching each other, but you guys can still see each other and have that conversation. So even though we are doing social distancing, there is a way where you can do that in a smart way. So even if you feel like I need to see people, I've been in my house, I'm feeling disconnected, you can meet someone somewhere and just have those proper distancing. I think you have to be really disciplined, right? To see someone you haven't seen in a while, you want to give them a hug. It's like, okay, these are the rules that we're going to follow. We're going to have our mask on. We're going to keep our distance apart. You guys are going for a walk together where you're out in fresh air. I think there's a way to create that connection in different ways. I think you have to be creative. So meeting up with someone, those kind of following those guidelines, talking on the phone, doing some videos, just to kind of make sure that you are connecting. Because it's hard, especially being single, when you don't have someone living in your home that you've been quarantined with. So you have to put in that effort to make sure that you are connecting with people on a consistent basis.
That's awesome.
That is good.
That's awesome. I know oftentimes people are, we're reaching out to those who we know, are single and no children, and, they're responding to us and saying, yeah, I'm okay. And it's like, no, you're not okay. You haven't talked to anybody. Right. There's no one there. You need to be able to talk to someone, to have a conversation, to get those feelings out that you're feeling, if it's loneliness or anxiety. And so with that, being able to share some of those ideas and saying, hey, we can always meet up. We can't go inside McDonald's to have coffee, but they have drive-through. And I'm saying McDonald's to have coffee. Tim Hortons. Right. To have coffee. And literally just sit in your cars, even if you're talking to them on the phone, but just you still that human contact. So that's a great idea.
Something, sorry to cut you off, but what you said is really important. Now is the time where you have to be truly honest. And I tell my clients this a lot. For individuals who don't have a true support system, someone that they will connect with, I said, who are 2 or 3 people that you can identify with that you can potentially build a support system with, and call those people and be honest and say, I am feeling lonely. You know that we're in quarantine. I just need someone that I can connect with, chat with if I'm having issues, or just watch TV together over the phone. Can you be that person?
Right.
Locking in a couple people that if you're just feeling lonely, you just want to talk, or if you're ever having a bad day, you have people locked in that when you call them, they know that they've agreed to be your person. So awesome. They have that understanding that you guys have agreed to keep in contact with each other. So it isn't that awkward feeling of, I don't want to bother them or I don't want to be a burden. You guys have an established agreement up front.
Now, the other dynamic that happens in this, we're talking about those who feel lonely, and what about those who, that's not our house. I mean, just some individuals, they feel like I've been around my folk and my family too long. I'm going stir crazy. I'm tired of seeing the same person. Not my house, not us. But that dynamic, you've been around your family, even the children and teenagers especially can have this issue. They tired, they're going stir crazy, mom's telling them they can't go out of the house, that type of thing. Or they even that they're lessening some of the requirements or restrictions, easing some of the restrictions. And then the parents now getting worried about that. What can we do in that dynamic when someone's dealing with those issues? Like I love my folk, but I'm seeing them too much. I'm used to getting out of the house.
I want to go back to work.
Or we want to be at work.
Work was my peace.
Yes,
that can be intense too. Have other issues involved with that. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I think with the families who are needing some of that alone time, I'll talk about them first, and then the parents with the children. I think it has to be, let's have a family meeting. And I'm about dealing with things up front and setting your intentions and making them clear and establishing that needing space doesn't mean that you don't love your family. Everyone needs a point in their day, their life that they can say, this belongs to me. So even if that is getting up a little earlier and going for a walk by yourself, or saying, you know what, every time I go into the bathroom, I don't need you to come in here continuing the conversation. Let me just close the door and have this time by myself. So even creating certain spaces like, okay, at this time of day, you're going to go to your room. I'm going to go to the office. I'm going to go wherever. We have designated places and times where we get our alone time so you can have time for yourself. Because I know that can be a lot to constantly feel like you don't have a space that you can really collect your thoughts, think, because that's where you really try and center yourself and figure out, what am I feeling as an individual? So it's important to have that time. So even, like I said, being intentional about your day and communicating that to your partner so they're not feeling like you're ignoring them or something is happening that they don't know about. So setting that, saying, okay, in the mornings, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk for 30 minutes. Or I'm just going to be outside and sit on the porch for 30 minutes, whatever it is that you need to do for yourself. Some people like going for a drive by themselves. That's something that they can do to kind of get some alone time where they're also not putting themselves at risk. Like I said, creating some space in your homes and just communicating, okay, I like to cook. Cooking is my piece. When I'm in the kitchen, I don't need you to be in there. So really being clear as far as, okay, this is what I need for you as I try and manage my own mental health while I'm in this quarantine season. In regards to parents, I am a mom, so that's tough. But I think you have to say your kids need the same thing that you need. Just because you're an adult and they're a kid doesn't make our kind of emotional needs different. They look a little bit different, but we all need the same things. So your kids also need social interaction. They need time where they can be themselves by themselves. They're not being fussed out about chores and putting the things away. So I think also designating a schedule for them, saying, okay, during this time of day, you're going to be working on whatever. During this time of day, you can do your own thing. Creating some activities for them. My kids are little, so I don't want them going out many places, but I have to be intentional. Okay, if I don't want them to go to the park or go and be with their friends, I have to create a space for them to have. So I bought a bunch of kind of outside toys. I went to the dollar store, bought a bunch of stuff for them to go outside in the backyard to play, for them to have that outside activity time. So I think down to really communicating with your kid, what are they feeling as they go through this quarantine period? Because this is a break in their routines. We're adults. We're used to change and adjusting. Kids, they're like, I'm used to waking up, going to school, going to recess, going to the park, whatever their routine is. So this is a huge change for them. So I think having those conversations, see, okay, how are you feeling about everything? Now, I know in Texas, school is out for most schools. I don't know about in Michigan. But how did you feel about not being able to see your friends for the rest of the school year? How are you dealing with that? Even talking to some of your kids, their friends' parents, and saying, can we find a way for them to safely get together? If it's having them do the car thing as far as just being able to see each other, or arranging for them to go for a walk while you guys walk and they keep distance from each other. I think it just takes some being creative and knowing that your kids and your partner, we all have needs, and just making sure that this is a time where you really have to communicate what it is in this season.
That's important. That communication piece, I think, is huge.
Yes.
Of course, we're finding it out, of course, even more and more, but that communication piece. And I like how you say with the children, finding out how they're feeling. A lot of times, when we were growing up, you probably can attest to this. Feeling. They're like, you do what I say and that's it.
Do what I say. You don't like it, don't eat it, go to bed.
Right, so we have grown, and I think our culture is growing prayerfully. So that's really, I think that's so important, Nikki. So good.
Great.
Good.
Great. Now there is this, and I think I want to hold that until the end, this dichotomy of now that we've like we're being released slowly from this quarantine, and the kind of like the anxiety piece that comes along with that. But I want to hold that to the end, only because during this time, there have been several of us who have lost loved ones, who have lost people who they've been very, very close to. We know of several churches that have lost their pastors, their pastors' wives, people that they, consider people to be able to look up to or to get advice from during this season. And now those people have been taken off the scene. Speak a little bit to, this grief piece, because this is a different kind of grief, where individuals go to hospitals and the families have not been able to be with them while they're going through their last times, or not being able to be with family members and friends during your grieving period, even at home. So if we can, just talk a little bit about that, and maybe just, kind of give some suggestions as to what we can say to people that are going through those kinds of situations.
Well, one, grief is already a hard process to go through. And I think there's a certain type of trauma that comes with that sudden grief that you're not prepared for. I think COVID came through with just a whirlwind. And I mean, the loss that happened very quickly, and people weren't able to prepare or say their goodbyes, especially with the regulations that came with that. I was just talking, like I said, when I went to Kohl's, someone was telling me, the cashier, that her mom recently had a stroke and no one was allowed to go and be with her during that time. So people are still dealing with this loss of not being able to get the closure that they need when dealing with grief, especially when it's so sudden. So, and then to add on, like you said, they're not even able to properly kind of have those memorial services or funeral services where they're really able to come together as a family and really start that grief process. So it's pretty easy to throw yourself back into your day-to-day when you can't really process what has happened. So they really, like I said, my favorite word, I use it all the time, to be intentional. You really have to be intentional as far as allowing yourself space to grieve. So that may look different for everyone, but I think we talk about the stages of grief and dealing with, bargaining, fear, anger, acceptance, those type of things. Really saying, okay, how am I feeling today about the grief process, and what do I need today to help me move through this? So some days it may look different. Some days you may need to sit in the bed and cry, and that's what you need to do to take care of your grief for that day. Some days you need to call a friend. Some days you may need to do kind of distance, let's meet up and spend some time together. But I think it is going to be a day-by-day process. Grief doesn't follow kind of this linear pattern where it looks the same for everyone. Some days you may wake up and you feel like it kind of slipped your mind that this person has passed away. So it kind of comes in those waves, but I think it's important to be intentional every single day as you guys navigate through this. How am I feeling and what do I need? How am
Right.
I feeling and what do I need? That's something that you have to consistently ask yourself so you don't get lost in your day to day where a couple months has gone by and then the grief hits you then. I think it has to be a daily check in with yourself to see, okay, what am I feeling? Am I feeling okay today? Can I get up and feel productive? What am I feeling sad? Am I feeling angry? What is the feeling and what do you need to help yourself cope through that feeling?
Right. I think and I'm sorry if you're going to ask
No,
something,
go ahead.
but I think one of the biggest things for me right now is the fact that because we're still a little bit in isolation and we haven't seen, certain individuals over a period of time. Right now, in my mind, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go to see that place, or I go to, where this person resides, I feel like, is there a possibility that this thing's going to rush in on me
Mm-hmm.
because now I see that they're missing.
Mm-hmm.
I know for sure that they're gone. And
Yeah.
so if you could, maybe just speak to that a little bit, as to how we can handle that and start preparing ourselves, because as we start getting out more, those missing spaces are going to become more apparent to us.
Yeah.
And so
One
I'm
thing,
sorry.
no, that's okay. I think I can speak from personal experience. I think losing Bethany and being so far away, it's like the distance is like, okay, I'm doing okay. When I come home, it's like, okay, I can feel the grief, the sadness, that missing piece. So I think allowing yourself to feel your feelings when you feel them and know that it is okay. So if you need to cry, let yourself do that. And I think in this season, it's important for you to reach out and get some support to help you start processing through those things. Now, this was unfortunate. I was doing teletherapy prior to COVID, but I think it's become more normalized in this season. So I think taking advantage of the fact that you can see a therapist from your home to help you navigate through this grief process so that you are a bit more prepared when that time comes. So I think for people who have lost individuals, reaching out and getting a therapist, I think now is the perfect and most convenient time if you were struggling or hesitant to see a counselor. You can log on sitting on your couch if you want to and talk to a professional. So I think it's important to start working through some of that, because I know some people, when they don't address their grief and it hits them all of a sudden, it can be very crippling and it can really knock you off where you're down and out for a while. So I think getting that help on the front end as you're navigating through this and you are in a place where it's not all hitting you at once. So when you do get to that place of maybe going to that person's home or going and doing things that you guys used to do, you've already started doing some of that work on the front end to prepare you for that.
Absolutely.
I think also for me, I experienced this too. Like Lady Y said, we have lost some close people to us, some friends and pastors, associates that we associated with very closely through our years in the ministry. And for me, at one point, it was almost overwhelming.
Yes.
All of the grief and all of the news, from the news to social media to phone calls. It was almost an overwhelming experience, even for me as a pastor. But I had this rebound effect where some of the feelings I had, as you said, like when Bethany passed, some of those feelings were starting to creep back up, and I had to watch myself and then limit some of the intake that I was allowing myself to take in from the news and the social media.
Right.
I think there has to be, and you can speak to this, a certain point where you realize that you can't yourself take it all yourself or take in so much, right? Because those feelings had started coming back, so I had to limit what I can take in. Even though I was feeling it, I wanted to reach out, and we did, and is sympathetic to those individuals and looking and praying for them. But then I had to catch myself and say, hey, hold on. I can easily be pulled back into a space mentally that I did not want to go to. So I think I had to limit and watch some of the things I was allowing to intake, because at one point it was so overwhelming. So I don't know if you speak to that. Do we just know ourselves when it's too much, or what are some of the triggers that we need to pull back and take care of yourself before you come back. And I like to say on the airplane, you got to take care of yourself, put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can try and assist somebody else.
Right.
I think that's very important. One thing for me personally, as a mental health professional, I sit down with people all day and deal with their stuff and taking it on and helping them through that. So I up front have to set personal boundaries for myself. So I say, I don't sit and watch the news. I know, okay, when my timeline is starting to look a certain way, it's time for me to social distance from social media. Like I have to have those boundaries within myself and knowing where am I at emotionally to be able to take on something else. Because I think you have this pie of emotions, and when you let so many pieces of those pies go, what is that doing to you personally? So being in those positions, and then that, I mean, me being a healthcare professional, you guys being in ministry, but just for day-to-day people, you have to know yourself and say, okay, I feel like I've been more on edge lately. My emotions have been flaring up a lot more lately. That means it's time for me to cut out the news, cut out social media, maybe cut out answering my phone for a little bit, and that's okay. By setting those boundaries, I think there is a difference between being aware and being overwhelmed. I think that
Awesome.
you can keep up to date on kind of what's going on in the world, but that doesn't take 5 hours of being on social media or 5 hours of just sitting in front of the news playing over and over. You get that little snippet of an update, and then you have to go and do something that's going to be cleansing to your mental health. So whatever that task is that you know, this is something that I know makes me feel relaxed and takes my mind off of things, because it can, like you said, be overwhelming. I mean, we're human. We've gone through different things, going through loss, and certain situations you put yourself in can reignite some of those feelings. So when you feel that happening, that's a sign, okay, what do I need to take off my plate so that I can focus on healing myself and making sure that as other things happen, that I'm equipped in the best way that I can to be a support for myself and other people.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things, and I don't know, we've told it often concerning Bethany, our youngest daughter who passed back in 2016.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things that we had to go through, even being leaders at that time, was we needed to sit down and talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
And try to rectify what we were feeling, what we were thinking. Our whole belief system was shaken.
Yeah.
And so I think that in this time and in this season, people are going to be asking questions as to why did this happen? Why did this happen to us? Why did this happen to me?
Yeah.
At this particular time, with everything else going on, why? And so with that, we sat down with somebody for almost 6 months.
Yeah.
For almost 6 months, where we put ministry on hold for 6 months until we could get to a place where we could honestly tell people that we believe God. We, back to a place where we could say, we know that this shooting, because she died from gun violence, we know that this was not God, but it was allowed for a reason. And so with that, it took us 6 months to really rectify that thing in our minds.
Yeah.
So to get back to a place where we could talk to other people about what was going on in their situations. And so I think that piece with you saying, now's the perfect time to, if you've ever considered a counselor, I have a girlfriend out in Pontiac, and we used to tease each other because we were going through some of the similar things at the same time.
Yeah.
And she would look at me and I would look at her, and I'm like, we need to talk to somebody, and it don't need to be us because we going through it. And so that was kind of our ongoing thing, not knowing that was one of the best things that helped us through this situation with losing Bethany. And so I just want to reiterate that counseling is okay. You don't have to feel some kind of way about it. And especially with, this whole telehealth thing, where, it's like, I'm just looking at your face and you're talking to me and I'm talking to you, but I'm in the comfort of my own home, and I don't have to feel like I'm not on my own ground.
Right.
So there's an element of safety there because I'm on my own ground.
Absolutely.
And so I just, wanted to share that and reiterate it's key. It's important. If you need to talk to somebody, it's okay to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Most definitely. I think, and she's absolutely right. When that, in 2016, when Bethany passed, of course, everything was shaken. Right? And us being leaders and pastors, but just start pastoring a month.
Yeah.
Full-time pastoring. I mean, actually introductory into pastoring a month when she passed. So everything is shaken. Your belief system is shaken. I'm like, what went wrong? How could this happen? Honestly, in my mind, as you've grown up in church and believe, like, I'm covered. Jesus is covering me. The blood's covering us. My family is covered. And when that happened, I was like, something happened. I even said to myself, I was like, an angel missed their assignment some kind of way. This should not have happened. It didn't add up. So I was having trouble reconciling in my mind what I knew and believed for so many years. Still believe, I believe God. Don't get me wrong. I had trouble reconciling what I believed versus what happened to us in the physical, in the natural sense. So I'll venture to say that I would not be pastoring and to the state where we are today if we had not sat down and talked with someone.
Absolutely.
Because I could not reconcile that on my own.
Right.
I couldn't. All of the training and teaching and pastoring and preaching, I could not reconcile the loss of a child on my own without speaking to someone.
Exactly.
And I thank God for that, and I cherish it, and we push it to this day that it's healthy, your whole health, your body. Of course, if something wrong with your body, you're gonna go in and seek help or assistance, or go to the doctor. Same thing with your mental health.
Right.
And my wife, she can say, I was taking it so hard that she was scared that I would not come back.
Right. It's true.
I just could not believe it. I could not reconcile it. But I thank God that we had a chance to sit down with someone who helped me get it together and get it back and start thinking, putting things into perspective. And now I'm able to, with some of the same tactics that they taught or we spoke about in those meetings, I use those when I talk to anyone who's dealing with grief or who has dealt with that. So it's very important and it's needed and it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
So that's a really big key. Like I said, we wanted to talk today about, the whole isolation piece, and we wanted to talk about grief. And just in the last few days, I've spoken over the phone to several people who have just said, I'm just feeling some kind of way. I'm extra down. I feel like I'm depressed. I'm angry. I'm taking on all of these emotions with regard to the death of our brother, George Floyd.
Yeah.
And talking about injustice. And so a lot of people are taking on this anger role. They're taking on all of these emotional things, and it seems almost like it's adding up. Okay, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we've been isolated from other people for the last 75 days. We have been hunkered in our homes, whether it's been alone or with family or with kids. So I'm a little bit stressed, I'm a little bit frustrated, and now this. Now this. How do we handle it? We see how it's being handled in the streets. We have riots going on right now. We have standoffs. They started out as peaceful protests. Now it's basically civil unrest because people feel like they don't have an outlet. So let's talk a little bit about that.
While you guys were talking, one thing that kind of came to my mind is to always be mindful of when you pour from your brokenness. So when you're broken inside and you're pouring yourself out to other people, other things, it breeds more brokenness. So I think this time, I will never say that it's my role, it's my position or job to tell any people how to deal with racial injustice. But I think that you have to be intentional about your actions and what you intend to get out of your actions.
Absolutely.
So people handle things in different ways, but unless you have an intention set behind that, as far as what is the end goal, it's going to be hard to accomplish what you're setting out to do. So I think I think it's great protesting and doing these things, but what is your intention behind it? What are you hoping to get out of that? And is whatever you're planning to do the most constructive way of accomplishing that goal? Or are you pouring from your brokenness? So I think it's normal to feel angry. It is normal to feel hurt. It is normal to want to feel seen, feel hurt, but what are your intentions behind it? So I think that especially going from being isolated and we're busting out these doors and we're mad and we want people to know about it. And in doing that, what is the end goal? What's the game plan? What are we trying to accomplish here? So I think sitting down with yourself, the people around you, and saying, okay, what is the goal that we are setting out to accomplish, and how do we do that in the most constructive way? And that may look different for everyone. I don't know the answers of how to get the job done, but I do know that if you don't plan, you plan to fail, right? So you have to have a plan behind whatever it is that you're seeking to do. I know that when dealing with any type of grief, and I think there is observer trauma, we have been traumatized by the amount that we've just seen scrolling past on social media, the videos. That's why I have to get away from it. I cannot watch another video. I can't watch another. I can't do it. So for me, it's like, okay, in knowing that certain things I can't be exposed to, what is still something that I can do? I can be intentional about getting my butt up and going to vote and saying, who are we putting in these offices? Who are we putting as chief of police? Who are we putting as the governor, the mayor, the president, all of our local, I mean, as far as kind of the houses and things like that, it's our job to let our voice be heard. And that is the most effective way to see change. Putting our money where our mouth is. So what are we supporting when we're spending our paychecks? How do we make our money talk for us? Because we know that's what a lot of people understand. So I think intentional about whatever your outcry is to be seen, being intentional and having a plan is so important. And also allowing yourself, it's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be hurt. And I think that is, again, where therapy comes into play. People can be affected. You didn't know, I didn't know Mr. Floyd, but hearing what has happened, it triggers something inside of you. And you know this is not okay. So addressing those feelings, seeking help, seeking counsel, and making sure that you're either, I'm a proponent for getting a counselor who looks like you, who understands you, or someone who is definitely culturally competent, because you don't want to sit in the office with someone pouring out your feelings and they have no idea what you're talking about. So I think seeking someone who truly understands from your perspective, especially at a time like this, is critically important.
Yes,
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely. That is so true.
I just wanted to just reiterate about, basically speaking from a broken place. Our very first counselor that we went to after Bethany passed, she was so emotionally wrapped in what was going on with us that we had to in turn start counseling her.
Yeah, we sure did.
Because we found, and as we counseled her, we found that she had lost her brother. He, in a very sudden way, and she never saw her mother get over it.
Yeah.
And so we had to then put ourselves down and start to counsel her from a place that we weren't even really sitting in.
Yeah, it happened. So we made the transition. So it was like instant. We started thinking about us and we started focusing on her. I'm like, okay, we came to the wrong counselor.
Exactly.
We're more focusing on you than what we're going through right now. So that's so important.
That's really important.
Who is coming from that place of pain or hurt themselves, or they haven't been healed from it, or that they're culturally relevant, or they understand where you're coming from.
Right.
That's key too, because someone who doesn't understand you, the culture, where you're coming from, they can't really counsel you.
Absolutely.
What you're going through.
Very good example of why it's so important to take care of yourself first.
Yes, absolutely.
As
Absolutely.
a helper, you should be equipped to be able to deal with people, even if you are triggered, to be able to be at a healthy place within yourself that you can still walk with people. So I think that's a prime example of what pushing through looks like, where it shows up where it's not supposed to, and the people who come to you for support aren't getting what they need.
Exactly.
It helped us for a second stop focusing on us. We left out and we laughed like, what just happened? We went for help, start helping somebody else.
Right.
So, yeah, it helped us laugh for a minute, but then we still need to deal with it. So God sent someone else to, it really helped.
Exactly.
Another thing, which is a good point, and I always like to point out, you are not married to your therapist. You hire and fire them. So if you find a therapist and it is not a good fit, don't give up on therapy. That person just wasn't a good fit. So you can always go and find another therapist who is going to be a good fit and able to meet your needs.
Absolutely.
Now, I think from a point of, where we have people that are, like you said, we're busting out of our homes and we're angry. And I think, like you said, it comes from a place of brokenness, because we've seen this happen over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
And really have felt like there have been no justice served in any of the prior, cases or situations. So with that, one thing that I was thinking about was, we oftentimes take, like, I can watch a commercial. And my husband, he's like, you just a crybaby. I can watch a commercial and become emotionally involved in whatever's going on in that commercial, and I can begin to cry from it. Yeah. It triggers something inside of me that causes this emotion. And so with that, as things are happening and we're seeing, this whole thing unfold again on the news, through social media, there's some broken places that are causing other folks to really get enraged. One thing, and I think what triggered me the most, was the fact that I mother a Black man. I have a husband who's African American. I'm like, that could have been my son. That could have been one of my grandbabies. That could have been my husband. And so coming from that point of view, as the mother of a Black child who is being raised in a society that can sometimes not be friendly, let's speak a little bit to that, because I think that has kind of risen some emotions in folks as well. The couple of people that I talked to, they are mothers, and the first thing they did was they talked about their sons, whether they were grown sons or they were smaller boys, and having to explain this whole situation to them in a way where they can understand it. And then on the flip side of that, if you have grown sons, just, reaching out and calling them and saying, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you in a place where you're safe? And that whole motherly and fatherly concern for a Black child. So speak a little bit to that.
Okay. I have a Black child. I have a son that is 12. And it hurts in a different way when this is your experience, this is your life, and you have a vested interest in protecting what is yours. So I struggle with that just as an individual, as a mom. How much is too much? How soon is too soon? As far as talking to my son about the realities of what this country is like. And I've had several sit-down conversations with him as far as they don't view you the same. You can't walk around the neighborhood with a hoodie on like your friends can. Those are certain things that you can't do. And this is why. And we've cried together. He didn't understand. He had lots of questions. But I think I would rather him be aware and prepared than say, I wish I would have told him. So I think conversations it's unfortunate that we have to explain these things to our children, especially when they're at a young age. But I think, like you said, there is a way to explain things in order to meet their needs. I appreciate that nowadays parents are willing to have conversations with their children, because kids see the same things that we see. So they're seeing social media, they see what's going on. So I think talking to your children, young, grown, having conversations, how are you feeling about what you're seeing? Talking about what are they experiencing with them themselves, because they're a Black man living in this world, which is difficult. How are you feeling? What can I do to support you through this?
Right.
I think we don't have immediate power to change what has been for generations and generations in this country. So I think educating our children as much as we can, being there to be a resource for them, knowing that it is okay for our Black men to be afraid. It's okay for them to be scared. It's okay for them to be sad, depressed. They are allowed to have feelings about what is happening in this country to them. So giving them that space to talk about it, giving them that space to ask questions, giving that space to provide them with information. And I think we do, and this is tough because a lot of people like to say, if you do this, 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 and this, then you will be safe. But we've seen people follow all the rules and still they've lost their lives.
Absolutely.
So like, okay, how do we, knowing that a lot of this is outside of our control, try to prepare our children as much as we can? So I think it comes from education and prayer and saying, okay, God, they talk about those praying grandmothers. It's like, cover my child and keep him wherever he is, but also knowing that you've taken the steps to make your child aware of the world that he's existing in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, and you spoke on this a little bit, but I think some of the things that we need to, or you can speak to, like our frustration and our anger with this injustice, right? I remember, as a teenager, getting pulled over, me and my friends, we weren't doing anything wrong just for being Black, right? I've been pulled over by white officers and Black officers for being Black. There's 2 or 3 guys in the car, 4 in the car getting pulled over. I've gotten pulled over. I remember specifically in front of our school at Persian High School, getting pulled over with guns drawn on us more than one occasion because, you fit the description of someone else we were told, or, it's just too many of y'all in the car at one time, y'all young and Black, right? So that anger and frustration builds up over time. And like I said, with the COVID-19 situation, us being in our homes, and then not another Black man has lost his life at the hand of a white officer, right? So it's blowing up, and people feel like they don't have a voice, they aren't being heard. Here we go again. So now the anger and frustration is spilling over to where it would be a peaceful protest, but others are like, oh no, we're gonna show them what happens when you mess with us, right? What we can really do. So what are some ways that we can use our anger and frustration in a constructive manner in this season? From your point of view, your standpoint, what are some things that we do constructively to channel our anger? What can we do about that? And then what are some of the warning signs if we notice, not we ourselves or someone else, to look like they're getting ready to tip over, go over the boiling point with this mentally, or with the anger, or with the frustration portion of that?
Right. That's good.
That's a good question. I think and I'll go back to say, it's not my job to really tell people how to deal with their anger. I know a lot of people express their anger in different ways. So I think in this season, knowing that, one, it is okay to be angry. And we've seen protests, we've seen riots throughout our lifetime. So it's nothing new under the sun at this point. And I think that there are different ways to communicate. Enough is enough. And a lot of times it takes those extreme measures to make people aware of that. But I think when it gets to a point where we're putting ourselves in more harm's way by letting our anger show, it's not reaching that goal that we want. So I think sitting down with yourself, again, I'll go back to what I said before, sitting down with yourself and saying, what is my goal for acting out this way? Because if the goal is to prevent Black men from being killed in the streets and you plan to go riot and blow up stuff, then they have grounds to do just that. So that's not solving the problem. So I think people have to be creative as far as what is the goal that they have and how to reach that. But I think being angry is natural. And I think when you are feeling triggered, like, you know what, I'm going to show the world what a pissed Black man looks like. It's like, okay, you need to take that time and reach out for help. Even if you can't think clearly for yourself, getting some support to help you navigate and deal with what you're feeling in order to create a constructive plan on how to express your thoughts and feelings. I think as far as the loved ones surrounding these individuals, checking in with them. It's our responsibility, especially in this season, to check in with our loved ones. Our sons, our brothers, uncles, cousins, dads, we have to kind of be that resource, say, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's going on? And you can tell when someone is like, okay, you're not looking too right. Something's going on.
Right.
And then that's the time where we have to draw our men in closer and really say, okay, let's talk about this. Let's sit down and come up with a plan. If you can't think logically for yourself, what can I do to support you? What can we do together? So they're not out there on like, okay, somebody step on my shoe, it's on. It's like we have to be able to, this is a time where we have to be our own arms. We have to wrap our arms around our own community and say, what can we do to help one another to address this in a constructive and effective way? So I think it really comes with us kind of being, we have to be our own support system. We have to be our own lifeline, especially right now when things are very amplified. Things are, if you look in the news, things are getting bad out there. And I think it's a matter of checking in with your teenage sons. Where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you with as far as they're going to a protest? Be willing to go out there with them. Some things your child won't do in your presence. Be willing to be that person. If you are angry, you want to go and protest, let's do this together to make sure that you are thinking clearly, that you are being safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good.
Great, great, great. So I want to go back to one other point, and then we're going to wrap it up for this evening. Now that we are being allowed, not busting out in anger, but now that we are physically being allowed to go back to our places of employment, going back to our businesses, being able to, I think the governor said that we can assemble 100 people. I think that's a little much, that we less than 10 people to now we can assemble 100 people. But nevertheless, I think we still have to use wisdom in everything that we do. But just knowing that now we've kind of been given the green light to do some things. Churches are now starting to open back up. And like I said, businesses, our restaurants are allowed to, even though they have less capacity, they're being allowed to reopen. So there are some semblances of normalcy, or what we considered normal in the past, with some extra precautions, still doing the social distancing, still wearing masks. Let's talk a little bit about those who are not ready. Because there are some people who are saying, I don't care what they open up. I am not leaving my home. So let's talk a little bit about those folks and how we can, maybe speak to some anxieties that they're having about returning to work, or taking their children back to daycare, or even going back to an assembled church. So go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
No, I was just saying that that's kind of, that's the ending portion here. Something that I just want to kind of close out on, but just speak to us a little bit about maybe some people who may be having anxiety about re-entering this new normal.
Right.
I think it's understandable. I think I'm teetering a little bit. I hadn't gone to the grocery store in months. I know that grocery store delivered groceries right to my front door. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. But I think it really takes that wisdom. I think in a lot of instances, especially Texas started opening up a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, this is too soon. I think some people kind of decided because the states opened up, COVID disappeared. And then there's some people who don't want to leave their homes at all. So trying to find that happy medium where you testing the waters, and you have to be honest with your own comfort levels and be able to advocate for yourself. So, you know, maybe going out for a drive for a little bit just to get used to leaving your house. Going, maybe saying, okay, this week I'm going to go to the grocery store, or maybe going to get takeout where you go to the restaurant. You don't necessarily stay and sit in the restaurant. So kind of testing those waters to get back used to being out of your home, making sure you're wearing your mask. I've seen so many people out, no mask in sight. So still practice, you know, wisdom as far as exposure. And it's African Americans, we are greatly affected by this virus. So I think we have to practice even more wisdom in the things that we're doing on a consistent basis. So making sure that you are allowing yourself to get out of your home, because you don't want to develop social anxiety in this process where you just have a fear around being around people, but maybe saying, okay, I'm going to go walk around a store for 5 minutes. Just look. You don't have to touch anything, but just get used to just being around people, or saying, you know, I'm going to go meet with a friend, or I'm going to go maybe try and do something where you're encouraging yourself to leave your home, where you're not kind of just isolating in there. So I think it takes those short baby steps, right, to kind of ease yourself back out. In regards to congregations, I'm hesitant around being around large crowds. Last week, my work had a training, and I saw it was like an in-person training. I was like, I'm not doing that. And I'm glad I didn't, because they're like, oh, everyone wear a mask. They finally allowed me to video in for this training. Nobody had a mask on. So practice. And no, I think we all have our own discernment, right? Where we know, okay, we're watching the news, we're looking at the numbers, seeing how things develop, practicing those precautions. And just because you go to church, making sure, calling your church, saying, what are your regulations that you guys are going to have in place to keep us safe? What is the distance that you're requiring us to be? Are you letting people in who don't have a mask on? Are you letting people, who's monitoring if people are hugging and things like that? What is the precautions that you're putting in place? And if they don't meet your checklist of safety, saying, okay, I'll just keep watching online for a little bit longer. So I think it comes with awareness as far as what are your checklist things that say, okay, the world is safe to go out in again. And testing those waters with baby steps.
Absolutely.
Baby steps are good.
Very good. Oh, absolutely. Well, how did you get so smart? That's what I want to know. You get that from your dad, right? But, all right. This has been a great conversation. We hopefully that we wanted to start this conversation. More and more people can, feel comfortable with everything that's going on right now. Of course, we always come up from a place of prayer and faith, but some practical things, some mental health issues, very, very real issues during this season.
Right.
And we just wanted to come on, and we thank our daughter, Natasha Montgomery from M.B.S. Health. I've been so scared I'm gonna mess that up. M.B. Amen. She is, also wonderful in this area. She's licensed in this area, and we sit literally on the couch and listen to her tell us what to do, right? To get our mental health right. So we thank you. Hopefully everybody has tuned in. Next time we'll try to do this a little bit more often. Maybe we'll have question and answers next time.
Absolutely.
We'll have people come in and we can field some of the questions that they have concerning this issue. So
even if they have some questions tonight, even though we're gonna end the feed, but if you have questions, just inbox us or put them in the comments, and then we'll put another segment together where we can address some of those questions. We know that there's a lot of things going on, and I know you have just many questions in your mind, because that's why we did this, because we had questions. Again, we've been, talking to people and getting different responses, and felt like this was a need. This was something that was needed. So if you enjoyed the program, and I'm gonna let Pastor close it on out. But if you enjoyed what you've heard tonight and you still have additional questions or even comments that you want to put in, just put them in the feed. We'll go back and we'll funnel through everything, and then we'll make sure that we put something else together so that you can have your questions addressed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're going to close this out. We're going to close. It's been a New Day Center Church, of course, and we thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to close it out in prayer. Again, we thank our daughter Natasha for, amen, coming in with her keen insight and wisdom and anointing in this area. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for your hand on our life. We thank you for being God. You're wonderful. You're kind. You're merciful.
God.
Thank you that you're in control in this season. We thank you, oh God, in this season. We pray for peace.
Yes, Lord.
We pray for healing in this season and peace in this season.
Yes, Lord.
You're the one, oh God, that we look to. Man does not have the answers. We're frustrated and we are rightfully concerned about what is taking place. But Lord, you are the answer in this season.
Yes,
we thank you right now. We pray, oh God, for all those who are dealing with this issue in their own way, in various ways. We pray that you would give wisdom and guidance in this season.
Yes,
we pray, oh God, for those who may be dealing with any form of grief or loss, that you would come in and heal and comfort. You're the God of all comfort and strength. We thank you for sending that comfort and that reassurance right now, that you would be with those that mourn. We thank you. That is a promise, and we thank you for that. Thank you for those who may be dealing with mental health issues in this season. Pray, oh God, that you would send the right individuals their way that would get the proper health, the proper help that they need. We thank you that the Holy Spirit, of course, is intervening, and you're sending individuals their way, or put people in their path that will help them in that area in this season.
Yes.
We thank you. Thank you for all those who tuned in tonight via Facebook and via Zoom. We thank you for it. We honor you. You're wonderful and kind. We thank you that peace is still. Thank you. Peace be still tonight throughout this country, throughout the various cities. Even now, we come against a God uprising. We come against violence. We come against looting. We think that there will be peaceful protests.
Yes, Lord.
Meaningful protests according to your will and your way. We thank you for it.
Thank you.
We bless your name. We thank you. It's already done. In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Lady White, for putting this together. And amen. Thank my daughter.
One thing I want to add really quickly. For anyone who is looking for a therapist, the biggest resource, the number one site to find a therapist is psychologytoday.com. On psychologytoday.com, you can put in by your zip code. You can search by a bunch of different categories in order to find a therapist that best suits your needs. So if you are interested in looking for a therapist, I would definitely recommend that site to help you find someone in your area. And a lot of, like I said, are offering telehealth.
Give them the site once more.
Yes.
It is psychologytoday.com.
Awesome.
Psychologytoday.com.
Psychologytoday.com.
Awesome. Listen, guys, utilize it. Amen. It's not a stigma. If we need that help, it is there. Let's do it. Let's take advantage of it. And like I said, my wife and I have utilized it.
Yeah.
And it has helped us immensely. Amen. So love you guys. Love you all. Anything else, Lady White?
Just one other thing. Just one more thing, y'all. As church leaders, I want to just speak out to other church leaders. If you are in need of having someone help your ministry, just to come in, even if it's virtually, Natasha is available for that. Just to discuss some things. She cannot do any one-on-ones just yet. Because she's in the process of getting some licensing here in Michigan. But if you are even in the Texas area and you are in need of a professional counselor, to just come in, speak to your women's groups, speak to your men's groups.
Absolutely.
About different issues.
Speak to pastors. Leaders.
Because we need help. Yes. There are a lot of things that are going on, and we need somebody to help us speak to our own mental health. We need to keep things together. And we're going to do another segment on that too. We did an in-person segment with a group of pastors here in Michigan, and it turned out really, really well.
Turned out very well.
Just talking about some of the things that we experience as church leaders. And so with that, if you have any interest in that, please, in the comment section, we will get you together and we'll do a private and personal Zoom. It won't be anything that we do on Facebook, because we do like to keep those kinds of things confidential. But we can help put that together for you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. All hearts and minds clear, as Alexis would say.
Yeah, I just her too.
All right. Good. We love y'all. Love you, daughter.
Love you.
Till the next time, New Justice Center. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Stand by again.
There we go.